Welcome to Cuttle Mill Carp Fishery. My name's Des Taylor, and hopefully we're going to spend a good day's carp fishing together. The weather didn't start off terrific, to be honest. I travelled all the way here in a storm. When I arrived, I've tattled up in a storm. I'm soaked all the way through, but it's gone clearer now, and hopefully it should stop clear enough to catch a few fish. We're in one of the most famous pegs on the whole of Cuttle Mill, and that's the pontoon peg. And the reason I picked the pontoon peg was I can command the whole of the lake. There's a lot of fish moving, a lot of fish rolling out of my swim. I've been here about 3/4 of an hour now. I haven't caught any fish yet, but there's a lot of fish rolling over the swim. I'm confident that we'll catch fish. First of all, let me explain why I've picked this swim rather than any others. The other swims today they're all excellent swims in the day, but the wind's pushing onto this, or so it was earlier on. The wind's dropped now, but there's still a slight breeze on the water, and so I would expect a lot of the fish to be over here. I've seen most of the fish, when I walked onto the water, I saw most of the fish from the island to a buoy out there. So most of the fish are concentrated there. Hopefully with the bait I've put in, fish are going to get their heads down and we're going to catch fish. But just because I'm fishing here, let's talk about some of the swims anyway. Those first few pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, right down into the corner peg, are all very good pegs. But what tends to happen, because a lot of people walk along there, the fish tend to go right into the centre of the lake and tend to drive fish over towards me, if you like. But as night time comes, the fish move in close, and those pegs will produce a lot of fish at night. The corner peg, I don't particularly like the corner peg, although a lot of big fish have come from there in the past, because once you've drove the fish out the corner and into the centre, you've got nowhere to go. You've got an island and you can't pass the island. Along the woods, those are tremendous pegs. You can fish in close, but you can cast far out into the centre. And actually, if I hadn't got the lake to myself today, we would be competing for these swims. Of course, we've got the pontoon, which I'm standing. These corner pegs, they produce a lot of fish, especially in the height of the day. And guys that are willing to put a float down in the corner can take fish right by the feet. Right along there we come right to the end, which is peg 16, which is right next to the house. That's a super peg, a peg that I would put on par with this one. That peg there, again, you can cast straight to the centre, command the whole of the lake. That peg, the house swim, the mill swim, whatever you want to call it, is right next to the house, and that house has got a history dating back to the 17th century. Albert Brewer made the place famous in the 60s when he imported some huge carp up to 35, 40 pounds. The record standing at 35 pounds, which is still the record today. Sadly, those fish died and the fishery went into a bit of a lull. It didn't produce 30s for a number of years, and now Tony, who you can see over there with his family, has put so much work into the house, into the fishery in general. He's been here 5 years and he's made it now a tremendous fishery. We've got fish back up to 30 pounds again. We've got a calf to the right where the anglers tell their tales of fish they've caught or fish they've failed to catch. It's just a beautiful place to be now. He's done a tremendous job. I think one of the advantages Tony has got is that Tony is an angler. He's been an angler for 25, 30 years now. He's been a carp angler for probably half that, and he understands what carp anglers want. He understands their needs, and so he's built a fishery custom made for carp anglers. He's made a super job. He's not a bad angler either, is Tony. Let's talk about some of the fish that he's put into the water. He's not stocked with anything but carp. There's mirror carp, leather carp, common carp, tails of some very, very big wildies. Those were the original carp in this country that the monks brought over. Those tend to be very, very long fish, very thin fish, which rarely grow over 10 pound in weight. The bigger fish, the mirrors, the leathers, the full-scale mirrors, etc., all king carp, they grow up to 50 pounds in this country, and they grow up to 30 pound in this country. All those fish are in here, all grow over double figures. The only carp in here that doesn't grow over double figures is a crucian carp. That's the smallest one of the family. It's not a member of the king carp family. It's on its own and rarely grows over 2 pounds. So we won't be fishing for that type of fish today. We'll be fishing for those big mirrors, the leathers and the commons. So now let's look at the peg itself. I've got my rods on the left hand side of the swim, plenty of room to the right for landing fish. That's a nice neat little setup. I'm not going to trip over that or anything. The amount of people that when they set up swim, they put things everywhere, and then what can happen, especially on a night, is people come running out of the base camp, the bivvy, and they'll trip over things, they'll be falling over, they'll be breaking landing nets, etc. There's no need for that. All you need to do is get your rod set up. We've got the landing net set up there. When we hook a fish, we know exactly where it is. Bring the fish to the landing net, land the fish, put it back. Then we come over to this. As soon as I've landed a fish, I can put this on the hooking mat. I know exactly where it is, unhook the fish, return it as it is. The swim's nice and comfortable, no problems at all. I'm not going to be tripping up, making a fool of myself in any way. So there's the basic layout of the front of the swim. Now let's go over to base camp and look in here. Nice and comfortable. This is where most specimen hunters and carp anglers spend most of the angling life, waiting for the run. So let's have a look at it in detail. I'm covered by a Kevin Nash oval umbrella. It's unique, it's the biggest umbrella on the market. It's the first one that's been able to cover the whole of a bed chair. In the old days, that when we used to use the smaller diameter brollies, we used to get our feet wet, and we used to get our head wet. The bed chair that I'm sitting on is a little unique in that it's fully adjustable. Cliff Fox, who designed the thing, is an angler himself. He's tried to fish on slopes and knows how uncomfortable it can be on a standard bed chair, the sort that you buy from the garage, etc. This one we can actually adjust like so, no problem at all. So if we're on slopes, on the bank, we're nice and level, we can be comfortable. Standard sleeping bag that you can get from any Army and Navy stores, that even through the day can be very useful. Even in the summer it can get very cold, and if you just want to nip in there, at least you can keep nice and warm. Moving across, there's my tattle box with all my gear. We'll talk about that later. Bait at hand, rigs at hand. This is just the luggage that I've brought to the bank with all my gear in. The same here, this is a rucksack. So anywhere I sit, we've got it at hand. So with that, now let's talk about baits. Okay, let's talk about baits. In front of me is an array of modern baits, but before we go into any detail, let's go back in history. Between the 1930s and 1950s, when carp fishing became more popular, a lot of fish were caught, but they were caught on standard baits. And those baits were worms, maggots, bread, potatoes, and a lot of fish were caught. In fact, in 1952, Dick Walker caught his record carp on a potato. Now, a lot of anglers will not use those baits now, but when you realise over the years, friends of mine have competed with guys fishing on the boilie at fisheries that lots of boilies have gone in. They've struggled to catch on the boilies, and yet my mate will catch on the bread. He'll put a piece of bread flake on, he'll stalk his fish, he'll cast out, let the bread flake go down onto his nose, fish will pick it up, bang, he's into a fish. So remember, although those standard baits aren't used a lot now, they still catch fish. If we look at Redmire, only a few years ago, Kevin Clifford and Rod Hutchison almost emptied the place on maggots. So remember, not all fish are caught on boilies. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. And although carp are caught on those standard baits I've just mentioned, every other fish in the lake ate them as well. So we'd got to a stage that we were spending a lot of time catching small bream, small roach, small tench, loads of bootlace eels. So it was a natural progression to try and develop something that we could catch just carp. And the next development was paste baits. I remember in the 70s we used to use pastes made of trout pellet, made of kitty cat, made of various dog biscuits that were crushed up, and we used to mix them with flour, liver paste, and we caught a lot of fish. The only problem was, again, every fish in the lake ate them. In the 70s, I used to use baits that big to try and get 2 hours fishing out of it. And even then, within a very short time, all the other fish in the water, the roach, the bream, the tench, etc., would whittle that down from that size down to nothing. And especially if you were night fishing, what would happen is you'd go to sleep, and if you fell asleep for 5 hours, you could bet that you wouldn't be fishing with a bait on your hook for 3 hours. So it was a natural progression to go from pastes over onto something that would last a long time out in the water, and that progression was onto particle baits. If you go into any seed merchants, you'll see hell of a lot of different seeds. There's thousands of types. All of those will catch carp, but one word of warning: before you use any of them, make sure that you soak them or boil them so that they're soft, so when the carp takes them, there's no harm done. If you actually give them hard in the raw state, what will happen? The carp will eat them okay, but when in the stomach, will take in water and swell and cause the carp stress. So let's go through the range of my favourite particles here. These, tears and hemp, we'll put them both together because I think that is a tremendous particle bait, because at the end of the day, a lot of pleasure anglers, a lot of match anglers all use these baits. And a lot of the time, they'll put many, many pounds into the water, and half the anglers won't even fish over the top of them. But if you know that there's a match angler been fishing through the day, he's put the bait out, or pleasure angler, just go over there in the evening, put a boilie or a particle itself over the top of it, and you've already had your swim pre-baited. They are a tremendous bait. Remember, soak them. Over to a controversial bait. It's been banned on a lot of waters because, to be honest, I think they're too successful. On waters that have heavy pressure, such as Cuttle Mill, where particles are banned, I think it's fair to say that fish can only take so much pressure and shouldn't be caught 5 times a day, every individual fish. And that's the sort of success you can have on these peanuts. Again, soak them, boil them till they're soft, put them on a rig that I'll show you later. What I do is these small ones, the red skins, what I'll do is I'll put those in as loose feed. I'll put a few pounds of those in, and then I'll fish a jumbo size over the top, 1 nut or 2 nuts on the hook. Okay, that's a tremendous bait. Here's another good bait, chickpeas. Large quantities put in, fish a couple over the top of it. A lot of people flavour these. They'll put an oxo, bovril, even soup. As they're boiling them, they've got the flavour in the water itself. So the end result is a soft flavoured pea. Then to a bait that's probably equalled the success of peanuts, and that's Tigernuts. Now, Tigernuts are very hard, so make sure you give those a good soak. I sometimes soak these up to 48 hours, then boil them for let them simmer for a couple of hours, then they're soft enough to use as bait. You'll notice that I've got some cork in there. The reason is I like sometimes to suspend my nut up. In fact, I'll show you the rig later. And what I do is just put a piece of cork over the top of it. And a piece of cork looks like another piece of tiger nut, and that's a superb presentation. That's a fabulous bait, a bait I use a lot. Now, particles were successful. The only problem was, again, a lot of other fish would be coming onto the baits, and it was a natural progression yet again for the carp angler to try and come up with something new. And what we came up with was the infamous boilie. Let's first of all talk about mass-produced boilies. Let's get one thing straight right from the start, that a boilie is only a simple bait. It's a selection of ingredients, flavours and a colour that's put together as a paste, and then it's boiled. And it's made into a bait that has a tough skin, so it resists the attentions of roach, tench and bream. That's all the boilie is. You don't have to be a chemist to make them, and you don't have to be a chemist to use them. When you go in your shop, you'll see a selection of colours, sizes and flavours. I can't really help you on the which one that you're going to catch on. The one thing I can say to you is try a whole range of them, get the confidence in the one that you're using, and once you start getting confidence, as in any form of fishing, rigs, bait, etc., once you've got the confidence in that, then you'll start catching fish. The sizes I like are the two that I've got here. I've got a small one and a larger one. Very often I'll use that on a hair rig or that on a hair rig. Some of the time I'll put that as a base with a boilie, a larger boilie, over the top of it. It's really as simple as that. They catch an awful lot of fish. They have done for the last few years, and they're still going to catch fish over the next few years. So get into boilies, learn about the flavours, learn about the colours, get your confidence in them. But it doesn't matter how many fish these have caught, there'll always be the guys that want to make their own. And rightly so. I use these mass-produced baits as feed, but when I'm actually fishing with the bait on the hook, I make my own hook baits. And that's where we'll go into ingredients. I'm going to say it again, don't be frightened about boilies. When we're going to make our own boilies, don't be frightened by the very ingredients that you can make them with. A lot of people actually start to think that they've got to be a biochemist or some kind of clever guy to make a boilie. You haven't. Let's just look at some of the basics ingredients. In every shop in the country now, you'll get a series of ingredients. Now, if you buy any book on carp fishing that has various menus on the bait, all you need to do is put the various ingredients that it says in the book and put them into a plastic bag, shake them up so they're nice mixed, put a colour into them. I like red and orange, and put a flavour in. There's various flavours. I like sweet ones personally. Other anglers like fish flavoured. Now, what I would say to that is, again, what you feel confident in using, what you start catching fish on, then use it. But very often, that once you start catching fish on a flavour or a colour, if it starts dying off and you stop catching fish, then by all means change your colour, change your flavour. What I do is I get various flavours, and then I'll put a certain amount together, mix them up, and use that combination of flavours. It's a unique then, it's a distilled flavour. Anyone that makes their own there, put 3, put 5, put 10 flavours together if you want, just mix them up and you've got your own personalised flavour. All you need to do then is put some eggs in, the quantity that's stated in the book, mix it up into a paste, and then boil it for the time. If you boil it up for 30 seconds, it'll be quite a hard bait. If you boil it up for 90 seconds, it will be a very hard bait. Now, I like to use a fairly soft boilie, but if there's a lot of other species in the water, like Cuttle Mill, where there's roach, there's crucians, tench, etc., the harder you make it, the more chance you're going to have of catching a carp. Let's just go through. This is a useful bit of kit. When you're making the paste, what you have to do is roll it into a sausage. Then you cut the sausages into small cubes, and then you roll them up into the ball before you boil them. What this gun is, once you've got the paste in its raw form, put it into there, squeeze the gun, and whatever diameter at the nozzle, you will have a sausage of that diameter. Cut them into cubes, and then you've got all the same size boilies. Roll them up, put them in a pan, boil, hey presto, you've got a boilie. What I tend to do is, as I've said, I use those, the mass-produced boilie as my feed, and then I make my own boilies of various size, from that size, which is a monstrous thing, to that size. But what I do, make various colours, various sizes, various flavours. They're the ones I've got confidence in, the ones that I've caught fish on, and hopefully the ones I'm going to catch fish on today. What I do with a lot of my boilies is I put foam in, and that makes them raise up in the water. What I try to do is make them neutral. So when they go down, they are sinking, but they're sinking very, very slowly. And the reason I do that is because when there's boilies on the bottom like that, the one with the hook in is the last one to come off when the carp sucks. If he sucks, all those boilies come into his mouth. Obviously, the one with a piece of Dacron and a hook is the one that's slow coming into his mouth. So if you've got a neutral one with a little bit of foam in, and all you do is you make your paste, you cut off a piece of foam, wrap it around the foam, then boil it. And what happens then is that's neutral. It's only just about sinking. So imagine that that's a lot lighter than the other ones. So when the fish comes over, he's sucking away. And that one, if you judge it right, actually the one that you've rigged up is the one that goes into his mouth first. And then you've got a hooked fish. Okay, that's basically about baits. The one thing I'd like to say, last of all, I've said it all the way through the talk, is the confidence factor. Don't put too much emphasis on these ingredients, the flavours, the colours. A good bait, which you've got confidence, will catch fish, and it'll catch fish anywhere. The main thing is, remember that to get the boilie into a swim where there's fish, get them feeding and you'll catch fish. Now let's put these boilies onto some rigs and we'll talk about rigs. So here we are. I brought the rigs out from a bag. I've got my tattle box here. I've got my testing jar, and now we'll talk about rigs. Today I've bought a series of rigs already made up with the baits. Obviously I wouldn't bring these along like this, but I've set them up to show you today. The testing jar I bring with me all the time. Just fill it up with water from the lake, and then what you've got is a situation you can test your baits in the water and how they would react in the water. So many anglers make baits up, and particularly ones that want to float, they put them in the water and they don't know if they float. If you mix your paste up a little heavy, put too much paste around your rig foam like we explained on the baits, if it sinks, all of a sudden when you cast it out, you've got a bait that's lying on the bottom, like that, which is okay because this is a sinking bait. But if it was a floating bait, then we're not fishing a floating bait. So bring one of these with you, and just before you cast out, test them. Okay, let's go through this rig. What I've got, imagine that's the reel line, going back to the rod. I've got a stop knot here. The stop knot is made of power gum, and let me just put that down for a moment, I'll explain that. The power gum, that's 22-pound power gum. It's a very, very soft material, and when we put the stop knot on, obviously being softer than the line, it doesn't do any damage, because we don't want to be fishing with 10-pound line, damage it with a material to use as a stop knot, and we're fishing with a 5-pound breaking strain line. That's not a lot of good if we're catching big fish. Okay, let's go back to there. We've put the knot on there, we've put a bead on, and the reason I've put a bead on there is to stop that particular bead sliding over. So it is actually stopped, you see? Can't slide. Now what will happen, as the fish picks up this, it will move away, and instead of the line paying through the beads, it will actually make contact with the lead, and the lead will hook the fish. Now the lead in this particular rig is a buzz bomb. Terry Eustace designed it, and the reason it's called a buzz bomb is it looks like the old bombs in the war. It's got wings on there, and when it's cast out, lies on the bottom. But the advantage with this is that when you reel in, as you reel in, it tends to come up vertical. Now the advantage of that is obvious. If you're fishing over a gravel bar or a snag, what will happen, instead of it in the snag, it will actually, instead of it in the snag there, it will raise over, come back. It's a super little bomb. The hook length that I've used to the bomb is a weaker line than actually the reel line, and the reason for that is that if that gets in a snag, it'll break, so that I'm playing the fish just on the reel line and down to the bait, which has got to be an advantage, because that's the main thing that gets snagged. And if that's the same strength as that, then all of a sudden you could lose the fish because the bomb's got tangled. Also, if in the rare occasions that you break on the reel line, if the fish is swimming round with that on, as soon as it finds a snag, that will break off, then all he's got to get rid of is the hook, which will take minutes, so we're causing no stress to the fish. Let's move further on. We're using a Dacron. This is a particularly thick Dacron. It's about 15 pounds. But the thing is, it's not the thickness, it's the softness. You see? And when you're using this Dacron, it's so soft that the carp can't feel it. It's so supple, the carp can't feel it. And that's how you get a take on the Dacron. Coming down to the hook, I've got silicone rubber pushed down the shank. And the reason I've got that is it keeps the hair there nice and straight, keeps it nice and tidy, less tangles. You notice I've got a hair, a thin piece of line, thin piece of Dacron coming away from the shank. We thread it through the boilie. We put a stop on there that stops it coming back through the boilie, and actually the bait is isolated from the hook. So as soon as the carp comes over, the hook is free to hook. You see? In the old days when we used to use paste, we used to put the hook into the paste, and we used to think that carp wouldn't pick up a bait if they could see the hook. That's rubbish. When that's lying on the bottom like that, a carp would think that that hook is a piece of stick, or it would be amongst leaves on the bottom, and there's just a bait there on his own. So when he picks it up, bang, we've hooked him. That's a very large boilie. I wouldn't use that at Cuttle Mill, but certainly other venues, especially when the 18mm size boilie has become blown, which means that they've become very cautious of it, then a large boilie like that can actually start producing fish again. Okay, so there's the rig, lying flat on the bottom. Away we go. Let's move on. This is a favourite of mine, a great favourite of mine. Now, the setup on the reel line, I would use the same as there. So there's no need to explain that again. This time I'm using a thinner Dacron. This would be a situation where the carp have become a bit more cautious. I've come down to a 7 or 8 pound Dacron, very slim. It's black. I don't think it matters about the colour. You can get white Dacron, green Dacron, black. Don't worry about that. If it's catching fish, it's the right colour. Okay, now this particular rig, same thing again. We've got a hair rig. We've mounted 2 boilies, and let's see what this one does. You see? That's floating up. Okay? Now, the distance that will float up will be the distance I set this putty. Okay? Now, let's just show you this putty. It's tungsten's putty. It's not lead. Just pinch it off any amount that you want. Just squeeze it together like so, and put it onto the line. Now, once you've put it onto the line, what you do is you don't want that falling through the water too quickly. You just want it to go down nicely. There you go. What you do, just keep pinching bits off till it just goes down nice and slowly and sticks up like that. Now, that particular rig has caught a lot of fish here, and that's a rig that I will be using today quite a lot. The fish comes over the boilies. That one's cocked up. It's the first one that gets near his mouth. Woof, it's straight in. You can imagine, because they're so light and they're popped up, as a carp sucks, those will come straight into his mouth very quickly. That's a super rig. And sometimes at Cuttle Mill, particularly last season, people would use the rig that high in the water. And I actually caught a 20 from this water last year with it 3 foot up. Extra long trace, straight off the lead. Didn't even have that. So that the lead itself was holding it down. And that catches a lot of fish. It doesn't look natural. Most of the boilies should be on the bottom. But sometimes if you can do something out of the ordinary, that'll catch fish. So remember, that's a super rig. Okay. Next rig. This is a boom Paternoster. Again, the reel line. Again, the stop knot. That's for, as soon as it picks up, remember, it hits that and hooks itself. Sometimes you can slide that knot farther up the line, so when the carp takes the hook, it can actually travel a while, feel confident, he's safe, then hit that, and then you've hooked him. Okay? But I generally fish it really close. 2 beads again, the beads to stop that boom catching on the swivel, that bead to stop it going over the stop knot. This is a boom I use regularly. It's a floating boom. I use it for carp fishing and pike fishing, and all it is if I go down on the bottom, when it's cast out, the lead rests on the bottom of the lake and that comes up. Now if it's very in autumn time particularly, there's a lot of leaves on the bottom and the rig is down there and you can get tangles amongst twigs, etc., like this, you see. But with that floating up like that, you see, it's up away from all the snags. You can buy those in the tackle shop, no problem at all. They're called floating booms. The swivel, standard again. We've got the Dacron, slightly longer this time, slightly longer. Vary these again. Let's get back to the confidence thing. Sometimes you'll use short traces, sometimes this long. I've used them that long. This one's a longer one. I wanted to vary them. Okay, let's just show you what happens on this one. Just got it slightly tangled. Let's see what happens this time. You see this one? Now, I've balanced those such that I've filled the boilies with rig foam, but I've balanced them so finely that if you just see, they're relying on the hook to hold them down. Now, as a fish comes over the top of those, the hook is on the floor, on the bottom of the lake, and those boilies are sticking above it. They can't actually see the hook. So that is so finely balanced that the hook is now taking it down. Now you can see the importance of this jar, that you couldn't get that at a guess. Sometimes it might mean chopping a bit of the boilie off, just a little bit. That is a very, very fine setup, and it's a setup that catches a lot of fish. Imagine that is on the bottom. They're virtually neutral, so as soon as the fish comes along over a bed of boilies, boom, that one is straight in his mouth. That's a super rig, catches a lot of fish. Let's go to the next rig. Actually, this was just a rig to show you that not all of my rigs are hair rigs. That side hooked, that can still catch a lot of fish. Remember that the old days of the hook has to be hidden is a load of rubbish. That will pick up very nicely. Imagine that on the floor of the, you see? But the ideal thing about this is as soon as the carp picks it up, like so, the hook is showing and bang. Look, I can't fetch it along without being hooked. Look, bang, straight in. I would use that before I use the hair rig, and when they get wires on the hair rig, when they get wires on this, the side hooking, then use the hair rig. Super method, that's called side hooking. And the last one, I'll show you. You don't need to use big boilies or 18mm boilies. Sometimes if you bait up with a string of very small boilies, this can be a super setup. Again, the same sort of setup on the bomb. I'm just showing you the end rig itself. Dacron, the hook, and there. Imagine putting a few hundred of those in a swim and that line amongst them down the bottom. Super. As soon as he sucks those in, boom, he's hooked. Okay, that's a multiple bait rig and a very, very successful rig. I'm using large hooks on there. If they become cautious, start going down in size instead of using 4s and 6s, which makes for fabulous hooking, and obviously you would lose very few fish on a hook that strong and that big. But I would come down to, on a rig like that, I'd come down to 8s, 10s and even 12s to make it. Why I would come down is because as they're in the water, that heavy hook is holding them down. And remember what I'm talking about, when the carp comes over, tries to suck those baits in, those won't lift up. But with a small hook, they'll lift up and bang you into carp. Okay, I've set a couple of stringers up, and all that is you tie that on the end of the rig, and when you cast it out, it's taking baits into the swim, right? We'll tie one of those up later. I'll show you. In fact, let me show you how to do that, because it's a situation that I use. It's a rig I use a lot. What you need, piece of PVA tape, string, okay, a length of that, tie a knot in the end, like so, get a few boilies, stick it through the middle, tie that on so, feed them through, like so, and there we have it. Tie that on the end of the hook, which I'll be doing in a moment when I cast out. And what happens, as soon as that goes into water, within 20 seconds that starts to dissolve, and what we've got is just the bait. See, they're starting to dissolve, that's starting to go thin already. And what will happen is, when it's dissolved, there'll just be the baits there and there'll be no PVA. It's a superb way of making sure that you've got bait near your rig. Okay, those are the rigs, stringers. As I say, there's obviously a lot more rigs, but again, buy a good carp book, look at the rigs, use a lot of them, get your confidence in the ones. There are thousands of rigs, but those are basically the rigs I use on any water, and I catch a lot of fish. But I'm confident in those rigs and I'm confident in those baits. Let's just go through the tackle box. I think it's important to go through the tackle box because there's a few items of tackle that I carry that are very useful. Okay, these are the baiting needles. That's a long baiting needle that I use on the stringer. Obviously, if you use a small one, you can only get 2 or 3 baits on. If you use a long one, I think you can get 7 18mm boilies on there, and that's a very useful piece of equipment. I use various types of needles. This one's a particularly strong one for going through nuts, etc. Sometimes these are so fine, if you try to put it through a nut, even when it's been boiled, it'll bend the needle. But this one's a very, very strong one. If it's too strong for that, then there we got a small drill that I use to go through a hard bait. But remember, they shouldn't be too hard, because what I said about particle baits, make sure they're soft, they've been soaked and boiled. The rest in this particular one is pretty standard stuff. I've got a couple of matches, just in case I fancy a smoke and I've run out of matches. This is a piece of equipment that I use for John Roberts. It's for tying the hooks. When you've tied the knot on your hook, if you put that on there like so, you can put your thing in the ring and pull like so, and you can get the tension, you see, so the knot will come close. It's a way of testing whether the thing's tied right. Smashing piece of equipment now. Okay, blade, obviously that's just for cutting dacron, etc. There's the tungsten putty I was talking about, very useful bit of stuff. A range of bombs. Generally I would use 1 ounce to 2 ounce, but in some situations when I'm casting long range, I would use a very big bomb, up to 3 ounces, sometimes up to 4 ounces, particularly on big waters where there's a lot of wind drift. There's a lot of line out there, so you want to hold that line nice and tight, and that's it. That's a special that you can buy powder and cover your bombs with, so you can get the bomb the actual colour of the bottom of the lake. You'll find it in good specialist shops. There's dark, there's green, there's that's light. That was the colour of a gravel pit I was fishing, and it just makes me confident to think that the bomb's lying on the bottom. Imagine if that was black, like so, on this sort of bottom. I would use black, you can hardly see that. If it was white, the colour of this, then you can hardly see it. It's just another confidence booster. Up to here, I've got various amounts of beads. You can't have enough beads. special beads for the rigs. These are the polystyrene little balls that I actually put into some of the boilies. You can use the rig foam, put it into little squares, or you can use these. Mould your paste around there and you make a smashing pop-up. Swivels, I don't buy the cheap brass swivels. I buy top class either Mustad or Berkeley swivels that have at least a breaking strain of 35 pounds. Some of the bigger ones I have are up to 60. Very important, because I don't think swivels will break while you're playing fish, but when you're casting long range and that initial power with the rod, you can break swivels. I've done it in the past. I'd never done it with a swivel over 35 pounds test curve. A couple of leisure stops, beads, go through it. Those are those floating booms. That is for putting on the line, just to, again, just put the main line through there, and it's a way of attaching a bomb. A lot of anglers use this and use lengths that long. I don't like tube. It tends to be very stiff, and I always feel that if a carp's coming on there, he could touch that stiff tubing and spook him. I tend to use very simple rigs. I try not to use tubes if I can. Spare battery for the buzzers. Needles. The only reason I've got these is because if I'm using baits that I need to put air into, or I need to inject flavour into, then I've got the needle. These are my ledger stops, my hair stops. When I've pushed the hair through the boilie, that I then put those into the hair, just snip it off, and that actually stops them coming through. They're smashing little layers, because you see these two things on the corner. When you've cut them, it stops that sliding out of the hair. Smashing hair stop. These are Paternoster floats. Sometimes, if it's snaggy and I don't want the line directly to the bomb, I'll sometimes put this float up onto the surface, so my line, instead of directly coming down to the bomb, will sometimes come right up to the top of the water, which makes it that my line is going across the surface and not onto the bottom where it's snaggy. Couple of spare bobbins, and onto the top, this is just an array of various things. A torch for when I'm night fishing, of course the old gum that I've mentioned, pack of Dacron. Don't cut yourself short and just make a few rigs. If you have a great day and you're running out of rigs, then make sure you've got the equipment to make other rigs up. Some more Dacron. The line, this line I've had for ages. I've deliberately left it out to the light, which makes line deteriorate. I want it like that. I want bad quality line, because what I'm going to do is I tie my Paternosters with those down to the bomb. Remember I said I made a weak link? That's now weak line, and I keep that in there, and it's weak line just for those Paternosters. Super glue. You never know when you're going to break something. If you're 30 miles from home, you don't want to have to go home. Sometimes that super glue has got me out of some real trouble. This is a useful item of tattle. It's a marker float. And what I do with this is I put a length of line on to a heavy bomb, set at the depth of the water I'm fishing. And when that's set right, that will sit nicely in the water like that. Now what I do then, once I've got it set, cast out into the swim, bring it back, tie a swivel onto my main line, connect the two swivels, that swivel and the one on my main line, with a piece of PVA string. I then cast it back out into the swim, let the PVA dissolve, and then out in the swim is a marker all on its own. I can then use that for accurate casting and accurate feeding. Very useful piece of tattle. Just a quick spin now through the box. There's my hooks. I've got a variety of hooks. Some I use for side hooking, some I use for hair rigs, etc. A whole range of hooks made by my various companies. The one thing I would say on hooks, again, the confidence, whatever you've got the confidence in, use a variety of hooks. Make sure they're strong, make sure they're reliable. I've got my own Pacific hooks that I use, you'll have yours. I've got my scissors, obviously. I've got a screwdriver that if I have any problems with my buzzers or anything like that, if I'm 30 miles from home, I need a screwdriver, it's in the box. And the other items are tattle, just little bits like the silicone tube that I use on the rigs on the hooks, the material that I use for the hairs, fine material, knife, another torch. That's a useful torch because I can actually put that onto my coat like so, and then when I'm fishing at night I can turn it on, tie gear on. It's a useful little torch that for night fishing. And that's it really. You'll make up your own tattle box. All the things you need, make sure it's in the box. Okay, let's stop talking. Let's try and catch a fish. Stringer made up. There's my rig. Let's tie this on like so. Couple of simple granny knots. And let's actually get out there, cast onto the marker. Line it up. Right. There we go. That's perfect. That's straight on top of the bait. Sink the line. Back onto the rig. Set her up. Pull it back onto the clip. Off with the bail arm. Right, what I'll do now is I'll show you the setup that I'm using today. 3 Bitech Vipers, and they're the same as most modern day buzzers now. What we've got is we've got a light sensor in there, the line's passing through it, and then when the line passes through it we get an indication. Now on there we can change the volume so it's faint, or we can come right up if at night and you're asleep, so we've got it much louder. We also can change the tone. Okay, that's the Viper. The design of the V there is very good, because if it's windy they don't come out there so easily. If you've got a shallow V, obviously like on a standard rod rest, then sometimes the wind can actually blow it off. So there we've got the Viper. Okay, coming down through there we've got the stand. Now the rod stand, that's been developed over the last sort of probably 3 or 4 years, and a lot of anglers use it now because, especially going on the continent, we fish a lot of rocky swims where you can't get rod rests in. So the stand is pretty easy to set up. Just put it on the rocks and you can adjust it to any level without sort of trying to bang a rod rest into the rocks. I like the stand even in England, because instead of coming onto the bank in the morning trying to knock rod rests in and frightening the fish out of distance, what I do is set up my stand up in the back of the swim, and then quietly sneak in, put it on the ground, and away we go. I think the reels are worth mentioning. They're a bait runner system, and what they are, they're a standard reel, fixed spool reel, but what we've got is a bait runner system. Now what that means is when we push this in, that actually bypasses the gears and actually gives us a clutch type system. And a lot of anglers would use that, just click that over, tighten up to the lead, and when the fish takes, there you go. As soon as you reel like that, it clicks back out and goes onto the standard system that would be just paying off on the clutch. Most carp anglers use that type of reel. Now then, what we're going to do is we're going to put this onto the bobbin. The bobbin I've made myself, and what this is, a couple of Fuji rings, a biro case with an isotope inside. An isotope is a gas-filled cylinder that can last 25 years. It shows up in the dark. The reason I've painted them red is I can see them in the day. What we'll do, take that up to there, put the line inside there, like so, put that over the top. So now that's free running on there like so. So that will give us an indication there, that's weighted. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll put this up here, like so, bring the bobbin up, like that. And then what I do is I've got a clip. And my clip is just a map pin. The harder you press the map pin in, the harder the line is to come out. And that is actually what hooks the fish. We'll pull the line taut, like so, push it into the clip, so now it's nice and taut. Now what will happen, well, the fish will pick the bait up, he'll feel the lead, he'll run. Now as he's running, the hook will just be in his mouth. Now as soon as he hooks himself on this, he's got to pull it out of that clip, and because it's so stiff to come out, bang, he's hooked. This will drop down and start paying out as the fish starts to run away. Okay, so let's clip that in there like so. Make sure it's nice and taut in there. Take the slack line on the bait runner system. That's what's nice about the bait runner system also, it's so easy to set up. Away we go. Just put that like so. Make sure you're at the bait runner system, just like that, and we set up. Both rods are exactly the same. I've got a 3-rod setup. Some areas you can fish 3 rods. This area is 7 Trent, we can only use 2, so I'm just using the 2 rods. Okay, we've got the bait out. Let's get a few free samples and put them into the swim. Keep the bait fairly tight. Don't just, what I'm using is that marker. And again, whoop, we're in. Yep, cool. The amount of times you're on the toilet, you're either baiting up, cup of tea, and that's what happens. That took straight away. We just got to keep out the way of this line here. Always keep an eye. One of the problems fishing with 2 and 3 rods a carp angler has is I'll just put my glasses back on so I can see where the fish is. Drop the line down. Take it out the clip so that if it does hit the line, it's free running. Okay? So now we'll play it back. Just kiting to the right again. Head into that snag again. Here's a tip. I see so many anglers playing the fish on their arm and tiring the arm, when in fact, if you put the fish put the rod into the groin, it's only a small fish actually. Put the rod into the groin and then you can give all the pressure, even with one finger. You're not going to tie your arm. It's a small fish, but it's a carp and we're having fun. Carp don't have to be 20 pound to enjoy, we're having takes. This is fun. Look at this, although it's a small fish, look at it diving down there. Cuttle Mill fish really do fight well. This is at the stage, even with small fish, that you can pull out. So not too much pressure at this stage. Let the rod do the work. Sometimes even let the rod go to the fish, just keeping a bend on the rod. See, look, takes the fight out of them actually. It's a mirror. I can see the scales. It's a lovely fish. There we go, look at the two boilies he made his mistake on. Nice and gently over the net. In we go. Another carp to Desi. Actually what we've done, you see what, we've actually caught the two lines on this one. It doesn't matter, we can sort that out after. It's a nice chunky fish. Look how chunky that is. I thought it was a small fish at first, but that'll probably go to double figures again. Let's get it back over here. In a bit of a state with the two lines, but that's one of the problems fishing with two rods. Look at how chunky that is. Nicely hooked. There you go. There's an alder fly. It's a little fish, carrying spawn, look. Almost topped up to the vent. Vent's open. Not so far away from spawning. That's a lovely little chunky fish. Look at that. Look how thick it is. Look how thick it is across its back. It's a lovely fish. Actually, that's not far away really from, you see the flanks with no scales on, then that would be, if there was no scales at all there, that would be a leather carp. But as it's got scales, these large scales, that's a mirror carp. And if there was all large scales like this all over its body, that would make a fully scaled mirror. It's been out the water long enough, there's no need to wait. It's really irrelevant, isn't it? We've had a smashing fight. Let's put it right back. That's a lovely condition fish. Look at the orange, beautiful. Let's put him straight back. Truly gorgeous fish. Here we go. Keep him up straight. Gone. Oh, hang on. Oh, I had a take then on that rod. Crikey. Missed that. Damn. Ah. That was a... Oh! Have I got fish moving in here or what? Oh! Crikey. 2 takes at once. Oh. Are they on that feed or what? That's doing very, very little. That's a nice fish. That's way out. I don't know if that was a fish that hit the line and then picked this up or what, but I certainly had a take on that rod. Let's just guide it. Oh, that feels a heavy fish. Yeah. Actually, this is fighting like a better fish. If you notice, there's not much thumping. It's not doing a great deal. And we now have the pleasure of playing a fish in the rain. It's coming in nice and slow. There's fish crashing all over. This feels like a better fish actually. You notice the difference in fights, that you get these faster. I mean, this could be a small fish, I don't know, but it's fighting sort of very slow and dogged. It's not done a lot. Now it's pulling a bit, you see. Just slowly kiting to the left now. Boiled on the surface, look at that. Woof. That looked a big tail. Oh, hear that thunder. Mind you, it's a good time to fish. I say it's a good time to fish with carbon rods, but it's a good time to fish with the temperatures. Caught that fish quite a distance out, and it's just chugged slowly back. By the look of that tail, that ain't 10 pound. Here we go. Remember what I said about in close? Very careful. Just milling around, look. Oh, just boiled there nicely. Watch the net. Starting to swim a bit now, look. Oh. Just chugging off. Right under that line, you see. One of the problems of fishing with two rods. Down we go. This could be a big fish. You see, it's not chasing around like the 10 and 12 pounders. It's just thumping around. Oh, this is good fun. This is magic. I can't think of anything better than having your string pulled by a decent fish. And that actually is a decent fish. I just saw it deep in the water then. It's got my other line now. This is a fair fish. It's boring deeper all the time. I have to get that rod down out of the way. I'm going to be in trouble with that. The amount of times this happens, we've bored it in, no problem at all, and now we've got this. Boiled. Saw it again for the first time. I think we'll have to land this one over this far side again, because it certainly isn't going to come round to here. Just put it round there. This is super. Look at that rod bend. Oh, this really does want to go, doesn't it? People ask, oh, that thunder's getting worse. People ask, do carp fight big carp? A strange kind of fight. What you've got is just a heavy lump on the end, and now that's all it's doing. It's just chugging in front of me. It's got its head down. Oh, look, it's going out again now. Oh, going well out. We'll net it over this side then. That's where you want to be. Just a dog on a lead. Somewhere on the right. Open the bail arm there, you see. Actually caught the other rod. It's actually taking the other rod. Can you see that? Give it some line. I'm going to bite that line. I can get the rig back, but at least I'm going to land the fish. Oh, crikey. This fish doesn't want to give in. Tony told me that 15, 20 pound fish have been fighting up to 20 minutes, and to be honest, I didn't really believe him, because I've landed fish up to 40 pounds in less time than I'm taking to land this. This is all over the place. It's in close. Who said fishing's a relaxing sport? Oh, here we go. She just popped up like a good one. Ooh, you devil. Look at that. Look at that. She was nearly ready then. I would imagine one more pull. Watch that twig out in the water. Just pull her up in the water. Here she comes. Oh, that's a good fish, that. That is a good fish. At last! Oh, at last. Oh, no wonder it thought that is a fair fish. Cool. I don't know what's the more tired, me or the fish. Cool. That was absolutely brilliant. Oh, let's weigh her up and see why she caught. Oof! Hey, that is what we call in the trade a lump. Cool. Let's put the rod down. Oh, look at this. Look at this. We've got a lovely fish here, look. I've actually caught in the gristle there. It's hooked that on the outside of the mouth, so I hadn't got so much control of it as I'd have liked. But you can see that's a fair chunk of a fish. Look at the girth of that fish. Just turn it on its side, keep it on the mat. There you go. The waistling's already wet, so there's no need to wet that up. We'll zero the scales again. Oh, I think we all might have been lucky today. I think we could have had a big fish here. Zero the scales. There we go. Oh. I never thought I'd say I was glad when that fight was over, but by God, did that go. That really went so well. Unbelievable. Look at that for a fish. Oh. I think we can safely say that's going to be 20 pounds. Teeming down the rain now. Actually, that can be good because on warm weather like this, oxygen, yeah, it's in the green. It's 22.12. Woohoo! How about that then? Well, that's what you call a fish. Gorgeous fish. Let's just put a bit of water on that, like so. Wash it off. Oh, look at that for a fish. 22.12. Absolutely incredible. More than I could have wished for. Look at that. One of Cuttle's biggies at 20. That's what you're all after, and that's what I hope you all get. Let's put it back. It's given us a lot of fun and a lot of pleasure. Put it back into the water. 22.12 of mirror carp. I'm going to hold this level till he's recovered because he's put up a hell of a fight. There he goes. As soon as he's wagged his tail, he's off. Yeah. See ya. Oh. Let's sort this tattle out. We're going to cast out my second rod after a hell of a storm. It's just stopped raining, and after all those excitement of those runs, we'll see if we can get straightened out and see if we can catch another fish. This time I've got two stringers. As you can see, the standard stringer which is dropping off the hook, and the other stringer I've just come off the swivel. It's just more baits. They're eating a lot of baits, and I want a lot of free offerings around by my hook bait. They're feeding confident, and I like that particular setup. Looks like a Christmas tree, but it works. Let's get it out there. Lovely. Let it sink to the bottom. Sink the line. Don't keep reeling and fetch the lead back. If you've cast to where you want it to be, then stop there. That's another good reason to have a bait runner. You see that I've just hit the bait runner mechanism, and now I can come back on on a free running into the stand. Let's knock that off first. Set up, over we go. Like I explained, pull it nice and tight. Into the clip. Cool, listen to that. That was a good fish spawning right in the trees there. We're doing well to have fish here actually, because most of the fish are all around the edge. Right, let's put a bit more bait out. Now, a lot of people would ask, how much bait do we need out there to catch fish? What I would say is, I would generally start off with 20, 30 baits, up to 50 baits. Now, I mean, straight away again. Oh, this is incredible. I've just put the bobbin on. Literally, I've just put the bobbin on that second. I've got so many fish in the swim now. It's just incredible. They're really on the baits. And what is happening, I can afford to actually put more baits in the swim, because I've got so many fish feeding in the swim now that I'm having takes left, right and centre. So that means I work on the principle that most times your hook bait's probably the last one to go. So if they're taking this one's coming in nice and easy again. I don't think it's a big fish. Right in the edge again. No, it's a small fish. Certainly not like that 20. Look at this rod, bending over. Certainly a bit different to that 20 pounder, isn't it? There you go. Another cuttlefish bites the dust. Short, plump fish again. Remember that carp fishing is not like this all the time. I've got the lake to myself. I've got fish really feeding. We've just had a thunderstorm. There's extra oxygen into the water and they're really feeding well now. So don't for 1 minute think this is standard. That's probably just under doubles. But it's a very pretty fish. Look at that, mirror again. Lovely fish. A little bit of spawn still left in that. Bit of a damaged dorsal. Lovely fish. Hey, we nearly lost that one. Don't panic when you got the fish, look. Just hold it nice and firm. There you go. Oh, we're having a cracking day. Oh, whew. Another one. Crikey, let's put some more bait on. And in we go again. They do like those baits. Oh, where was I? Trying to get a bait out, actually, I think. I think that's one of the first times I've done that, just cast straight out, and that fish that must have just landed straight on his head. He's gone straight down on the bait, and woof, we're in. Lovely. Same sequence again. Here we go. Sink the line. On with the bait runner. Down. Into the rest. Over with the indicator. Pull it nice and taut. In with the clip. Off with the bail arm. Tighten that line back up. Turn the buzzer on. And we're in. Right, let's get that net back. remember what I said, keep things nice and tidy so that if we have another fish, we're not looking for nets and looking for waist slings and looking for all sorts of things. I think it's worth talking about what we've just had happen to us over the past few minutes. We've had 2 runs at once, a 20-pounder. First cast back out again after the storm, we've had another fish. But let's just talk about that a bit, because a lot of anglers could have lost that fish, particularly the big fish. Remember, it's crossed my line. I made the decision to cut the line. I've got the rig back, because at the end of the day I would rather lose a rig or cut a line than lose a fish on it, because then it's tugging a lead round, it's got a hook in its mouth. So that was the decision I made, and it worked out. Now, I didn't panic when it was over the other lines, and when I eventually brought it in front of me, I didn't panic. So many anglers, after a certain time, they want to get it in the net quick. They see that it's a big fish, and for the next few minutes they're just giving it a hell of a lot of stick because they want it in the net as quick as possible. Now, if it takes 2 minutes or it takes half an hour, at the end of the day, the success story is when it's gone in the net. And that's what we did. I think it's worth mentioning here that when you're going to net the fish, if it's out there, don't go with the net. I see that so often. People have got their net like this, they lift it up, the fish boils away from them, they even might hook the net, the hook's going through its mouth, the net catches on it, you're in a breakup situation. Keep the net nice and close. There's your landing situation. Bring the fish over the net, don't chase around. If it goes to the right, don't chase after it. Bring the fish back to the net. Okay? Let's get back to putting a bit of bait back in. Now, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by another fish, that people will ask how many baits to put in. As I said, I've started with 30, 40, 50 baits. And I work on the assumption a lot of times that the bait on the hook is the last one taken. If I start having takes, then I assume that most of the baits have been eaten and I put more baits in. So let's just put a few baits in. Let's shoot it out there. That one's a bit short. And when we've put a few baits out, we'll talk a little about the swim. So many anglers don't they never look down in the water. They fish from the bank and they never try to understand what's actually happening out there under the water. And the most successful anglers I've ever known are the people that think what's happening in the swim. Now, it's obvious what's happening in our swim, and that's fish are coming in, they're feeding over the bait. The swim is a little deeper. It's about 6 foot, comes off 4 foot, comes off 4 foot. In fact, it's a little bowl. And what we've got a 6 foot indentation. Those fish are coming in that hole, holding, especially in the winter. That's a very good peg in the winter. Fish go in that deeper water and they stay there, and they're there now. And it's just an excellent swim. All we need to do is just keep the bait going in. When we have another take, assume that we need some more bait. Put another 10, put another 15, put another 20. Whatever you feel, experience will tell you how much bait you need. Just put it out there, wait for the take. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going back onto base camp and see if we can get another take, because I'm going to have a bite to eat, if the fish will allow me to. Right. And again, here we go. Oh, I'm catching so many fish, this is unbelievable. Oh. As I said, don't get carried away. This is a nice. This is a good fish again. Oh. Oh. Then don't get carried away that this is standard carp fishing. This is Cuttle Mill at its very best. It's very, very best. That's kiting to the right now. Oh, wee. Kiting to the right. Just pulling. Let the rod do the action. Right. It's kiting to the right. Now he's coming in. Okay. You know, this could be another good fish. Doing very little, very little. Coming in close. Closer again. I hope the same doesn't happen again, that we've got a 10-minute fight underneath our feet, because this fish is coming in exactly the same as the other one. Hardly doing anything. It's in close now. It's only a few yards out. Hardly done anything. I'm just waiting for it to start to go. Yeah, it's in close now. Let's start getting the landing net ready. That's beautiful. Look at this fish go again. It's in close. Oh, there it boils, look. It doesn't feel as powerful as that 20, but it still feels a good fish. I didn't catch a good enough glimpse of it, really, to say how big it was. Let's get the Ned ready. Oh yeah, it's a fair fish. It is a fair old fish. Looks almost like a leather. Oh, look at this boil. Again, that fish hardly did anything on the way in. The amount of times fish do that. Boiled near the surface again, do you see that? Ooh. That's a fair fish again. Trying to get above the fish. Boiled again, look at that. That's a good fish. It really is a good fish. It looks like a leather. Can't see many scales on it. Keeps just boiling near the surface. Oof. Boiling near the surface again. Such tremendous sport, this. Oh. When the wife ever asks why you go fishing again, and you have this, you can give her the answer, can't you? Because this is tremendous sport. Oh. All it's doing is just coming to the surface, crashing over. Really fit fish. Look at it boil. Look at it boil. It's been a long time since my arms have ached. But the fish that we've had today have fought so well. Look at that swirl. Just turning over and over and over. I can't, if I didn't give line at that time, I doubt if the line would give, but you never know the hook hold, and that's one of the most dangerous points. It's not far away now. I reckon another 2 hours and I'll have this landed. Oh, just when I think I've got it beat, it gets a new surge of power. I'm absolutely soaked, but I'm not really bothered. Look, just give it the rod, bit of line. This is where so many big fish are lost. So many big fish are lost like this, in this close. Swirling on the top. Cool. That's a real dangerous point there when that comes up, slaps its whole body over the line. Not so far away now. Mind you, I've said that about 3 times, haven't I? Look at this. Oh. So many fish in the swim now. Here, we're not far away, look. There we go. Just keep his head up nicely. Don't reach out for him. Slowly to the net. Slowly to the net. Yeah, look at that. There we go. Oh, crikey, that's bigger than I thought. Oh. That's bigger than I thought. Look at that for a lean fish. That's obviously spawned. Oh. Oh, look at this for a fish. Oh. Count ourselves very honoured to see a fish like this. Look at that. That's almost a leather. Not quite, you see the scales? But almost a leather. You see no scales down his flanks. Let's take those off a second. Look at that. Beautiful fish. That's willing. Easily out. Look at that for a fish. Remember what I said? Put that over his head. No panic. Fish is going to be okay for a while. Over to the weigh sling. We've used this a few times today. I wouldn't like to say how big that is because it's a deceiving fish. It's a long fish, absolutely teeming down the rain now, but I'm boiling hot. Oh, that is absolute heaven. It's like fishing Fantasy Island today, isn't it? Oh. Oh. Oh, who'd be anything but an angler? Let's see what we've got. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Green. 21. 13. Oh. That's even better than we could have wished for. Ah, oh, look at this. 2 20s. Absolutely. So you see the difference in fish there. The first 20 was a short, fat fish, and now this fish is a long fish. Hold it nice and firm, look. There we go, he's going nowhere. Absolutely beautiful. That has made my day. So it should. Let's return it. Oh, look at this. A brace of 20s and doubles as well. Let's put him back. Oh, that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Hold on again. So we get him straight. He's fought well. Oh, he's still got plenty of kick in him. It's important. Make sure they're up stable before you let them go. Look, he wants to go. Let him go. Oh, what an end to the day. I'm going to give that quits now. Absolutely teeming down the rain. I'm soaked. I'm going to call it a day. But I'm going to say one thing. that if you're in the right swim, the right time, the right bait, full of confidence, like I said, that's the sort of day that is possible. I hope you've learned something today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself today. I'll see you soon.